A decorated soldier delivers a mysterious package to Naomi Hartwell, a powerful CEO grieving her husband Elijah's death. Inside are secret clues Elijah left behind, revealing he had uncovered a dangerous covert network leaking military intel. As Naomi and the soldier dig deeper, they discover the betrayal reaches inside her own company. Pursued by shadowy operatives, they flee through hidden corridors and darkened loading docks while trying to protect Elijah's final evidence. Trust fractures, loyalties blur, and Naomi learns someone close to her may have orchestrated everything. The truth Elijah died for begins to surface, setting the stage for a devastating revelation. The rain fell in thin silver lines across the city, veiling the morning in a hush that felt almost ceremonial. No one noticed the uniformed figure stepping out of the rideshare, boots landing with a quiet thud on the wet pavement. But he noticed everything: the glass tower, the revolving doors, the name of the company etched like a promise against the steel. And he felt the weight of the small package in his hand, light but somehow heavier than any duffel he had ever carried across any battlefield. He paused, breath fogging in the cool air, as though gathering courage before breaching another unseen front line. Inside the package was something meant not for him, not anymore, but for the woman whose name he had repeated to himself during the entire flight. Dr. Naomi Hartwell, CEO, visionary, fortress of a woman who commanded boardrooms the way generals commanded armies. And yet, he suspected she had no idea he was coming. No idea what waited for her inside the unremarkable cardboard cube. No idea that everything she believed about the past was about to shift, fracture, and spill open like a long-sealed vault. The lobby swallowed him in soft light and marble echoes. Security glanced at his uniform, older now, edges worn, patches faded, and gestures of respect passed between strangers with the subtlety of a salute. But respect didn't steady his hands. He felt them tremble as he signed the visitor log, felt the tremor climb up his arm like a warning. Naomi Hartwell sat 37 floors above him, unaware that the day she had planned, a day stacked with investor calls, press briefings, and delicate negotiations, was already off script. She believed she understood disruption. She built empires from chaos. But nothing in her repertoire prepared her for the arrival of a silent soldier carrying the final message of a man she had tried desperately to forget. As the elevator climbed, he replayed the last night he had seen her husband. The memory unfurled in flashes: heat, dust, the distant bloom of explosions, and the calm voice of Captain Elijah Hartwell cutting through the chaos. Elijah had pressed the package into his hands with a steadiness that contradicted the firestorm around them. "If anything happens," Elijah had said, "you take this to her. No one else. Promise me." And he had promised, not knowing that promise would become the heaviest mission of his life. He had survived the ambush. Elijah had not. Weeks passed in a blur of reports, formalities, and silence, the kind that hangs over survivors like an accusation. And through all of it, the package remained unopened, untouched, waiting for the woman it belonged to. When the elevator chimed, he stepped into a hallway lined with glass and quiet footsteps. Assistants moved like shadows, whispering updates, checking schedules, their urgency polite, polished, practiced. "Sir, may I help you?" one asked, eyes dropping to the package. He opened his mouth, but no words emerged. Instead, he simply offered the visitor badge clipped to his shirt, and the assistant's expression softened with a kind of startled compassion. "She's in her office," the assistant said. "Do you want me to announce you?" He shook his head. Some things couldn't be announced. Some arrivals carried their own gravity. He moved toward the frosted glass doors at the end of the hall, each step landing with the certainty of fate tightening its grip. Behind those doors, Naomi Hartwell stood at her desk, reviewing quarterly projections, pen tapping with precise, rhythmic tension. Her tailored suit was immaculate, her posture unbreakable. And yet, beneath the armor, she carried a quiet sorrow, the kind that success could never mend. The loss of Elijah was the one chapter she refused to reopen. But the past had arrived anyway. It stood on the other side of the door, heart pounding, hand shaking, package trembling like a heartbeat. And before she even turned to see him, she felt a shift in the air, a subtle change in temperature, the unmistakable presence of something long buried rising to the surface. When he finally knocked, the sound cut through the room like a fracture. Naomi lifted her gaze, frown tightening, a flash of irritation crossing her features. But when she opened the door and saw the uniform, the boots, the weary eyes, the irritation dissolved. Something colder, deeper, took its place. "Ma'am," he said, voice rough, waited. "I served with your husband." The word struck her with the soft, violent force of memory. For a moment, she could only stare, not breathing, not blinking, as though her body refused to move until the world made sense again. Then she saw the package. Small, plain, harmless, and instantly terrifying. "This is from him," the soldier said. "His last request." Silence expanded between them, dense enough to swallow the rain, the marble, the entire city. Naomi reached for the package, but her hand stopped inches away, as though touching it might unmake her. "What's inside?" she whispered. He swallowed. "I don't know," he said. "He told me not to look." The truth cracked through her like lightning. Whatever Elijah had left for her was something he trusted only to reach her hands. Something meant to find her in this exact moment. The soldier extended the package once more. Naomi forced her fingers to close around it, felt its surprising warmth, and the tremor she had hidden for years rose beneath her skin. The room seemed to tilt, just slightly, the way a story begins to unravel before revealing its truth. She exhaled, a thin, breaking sound. "Why now?" she asked. He looked at her with a haunted steadiness. "Because," he said, "you deserve to know what he died protecting." Outside, thunder rolled along the skyline, low and ominous, as though the sky itself braced for what came next. And as Naomi Hartwell stood frozen in the doorway, clutching the package that pulsed with mystery and memory, she sensed that nothing in. Naomi closed the office door behind them, the latch clicking with a finality that made the soldier straighten unconsciously, as if answering a command. The rain-streaked skyline framed her silhouette, a portrait of strength barely masking shock. She set the package on the polished table, but her fingers lingered on it as though it radiated heat. The soldier watched her, shoulders squared, eyes storm-bright with memories he hadn't spoken aloud in months. The room felt suspended, as though time itself held its breath, waiting for her decision. Yet Naomi didn't open it. Not yet. She stepped back, inhaling a steadying breath, the kind she used before walking into crises far larger than quarterly losses. She finally turned to him, voice softer than he expected. "Sit, please." He obeyed, lowering himself into one of the leather chairs, the creak echoing in the quiet office. Naomi circled him slowly, studying him with a sharp perception that made entire industries nervous. The soldier wasn't young, but neither was he old. He wore the subtle weariness of someone who'd walked through fire and still smoldered from it. "You knew Elijah well?" she asked. His jaw tightened. "He was my commanding officer. More than that, he was the kind of man you follow even when every instinct says run." Her eyes closed momentarily, the words striking deep. Naomi moved to the window, hands clasping behind her back. "I never understood what happened," she said. The official report was vague. Too vague. The soldier nodded. Because the official report was incomplete. She stiffened. A gust of wind rattled the glass as though reacting to the truth finally spoken aloud. "Then tell me," she said. Her voice held iron and desperation in equal measure. "All of it." He hesitated, watching her shoulders rise and fall with slow, controlled breaths. "Ma'am, some truths don't bring peace." She turned sharply. Keeping them didn't bring peace either. He leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees, as if bracing against the weight of memory. "It started 3 weeks before the ambush," he said. "Our unit intercepted encrypted communications, messages mentioning your husband by name. Someone inside the chain of command was leaking intel about his movements." Naomi's blood turned cold. "Internal betrayal?" He nodded. Elijah was trying to trace it quietly, to avoid triggering suspicion. "The package," he gestured toward it. "It contains what he uncovered. He told me it was the truth someone would kill to bury." Naomi's pulse thundered with disbelief and dread, memories of whispered condolences and incomplete explanations rising like ghosts. She approached the package again, fingertips grazing the edge. "So he was targeted," she whispered. "The ambush wasn't random." The soldier's silence was the answer. Naomi felt the floor tilt beneath her. Elijah had been steady, principled, a man who believed in transparency even when it hurt. If he'd died protecting something, it wasn't just sensitive intel, it was truth forged into a final message. Her throat tightened painfully. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" she asked. The soldier looked away. "Because someone made sure you wouldn't know." The words vibrated through her like a strike against hollow steel. Before she could respond, her office door rattled with an unexpected knock. Both froze. Naomi's assistants never knocked like that. Sharp, urgent, almost panicked. She opened the door a crack. Her chief of staff stood there, face pale, eyes darting toward the soldier behind her. "Dr. Hartwell, there are 2 men downstairs asking for a visitor who came up without being logged into any scheduled appointment." Naomi's eyes narrowed. "Security contractors?" "They didn't show credentials," the chief of staff whispered. "They insisted they only needed to locate him." The soldier rose immediately, tension rolling off him like heat. Naomi's pulse spiked. The air thickened. She closed the door firmly and turned to him. "You're being followed." He exhaled sharply. "I thought I lost them at the airport." She stared at him, incredulous. "Airport? They followed you across states." His silence deepened the dread swirling in her gut. "Who are they?" she pressed. He shook his head. "Not military. Not officially. The kind of men who erase loose ends." Naomi's breath hitched. "You think they're here because of the package?" His gaze flicked to the small box again. "I know they are." Thunder rolled softly outside, a long, low warning that vibrated through the floor. Naomi's instincts, honed through decades of high-stakes corporate warfare, surged to the forefront. She locked the office door and strode to her desk, accessing the emergency security override she'd installed after a threat assessment years ago. "No one gets in without my biometric clearance," she said. The soldier nodded, but his jaw clenched with unease. "They won't knock next time." Naomi faced him, spine straight, fire rising behind her grief. "Then we open it. Right now." He hesitated, eyes scanning the room as though expecting danger to seep through the walls. "Once you see it, you can't unsee it," he warned. She smiled bitterly. "I've lived my whole life unseeing things that mattered." She approached the package, hand steady now with purpose rather than fear. The soldier stepped beside her, a silent sentinel. Naomi broke the seal slowly, each tear of tape loud in the tense quiet. Inside lay a second container, metal, heavy, latches secured with precision. A small envelope rested on top, Elijah's handwriting unmistakable. Naomi's breath quivered as she picked it up, fingers brushing the ink like a caress. For a moment, grief overwhelmed her, bending her forward slightly, her shoulders trembling. The soldier placed a gentle hand on the table, grounding her without touching. She opened the envelope. A single sentence stared back at her. "If you're reading this, they've already come for me, and now they'll come for you." Naomi's vision blurred. She closed her eyes, inhaling deeply, steadying herself as the world shifted beneath her feet. When she spoke, her voice was steel wrapped in sorrow. "Open it." The soldier unlatched the metal container. The lid lifted with a soft metallic sigh. Inside was a small hard drive, a worn leather notebook, and a folded piece of fabric stained with dust and something darker. The soldier stiffened. Naomi's hand covered her mouth. The notebook lay open within the box, a page marked with a red slash. Elijah's handwriting filled it, sketches, names, coded numbers. And beneath it all, a symbol she didn't recognize but felt instinctively she should fear. The soldier whispered, "Ma'am, this is bigger than we thought." Naomi lifted her eyes, shimmering with tears and fire. "Then we finish what he started." Naomi stared at the hard drive as though it were a live fuse, humming with the last breath of a man she had loved and the danger he had died uncovering. The storm outside cracked open the sky, lightning stitching white scars across the glass. The soldier, Marcus, she now remembered he'd said his name, stood close enough that she could feel the tension radiating off him, alive and coiled. The office felt too quiet, the kind of silence that comes before doors burst open and lives split apart. Naomi forced her breath into a steady rhythm, though everything inside her felt fractured. She lifted the leather notebook from the box, its edges worn, the pages filled with Elijah's looping handwriting. Her fingers trembled as she opened it to the marked page, and the symbol stared up at her again, an angular emblem, sharp, geometric, unmistakably intentional. "I've never seen this before," she whispered. Marcus exhaled slowly. "I have." He said it reluctantly, each word dragged from a place he had tried to bury. He pointed at the symbol, his fingertip hovering above the ink. This belonged to a clandestine network. Off-book operations. Not military, not intelligence, something parallel, something older. Elijah was tracking a breach that traced back to them. Naomi felt a chill spider down her spine. "You're telling me my husband uncovered an illegal covert group inside the defense system?" Marcus nodded, eyes locked on the notebook. "Not just uncovered. He identified one of their insiders. Someone close enough to know his movements." Naomi closed the notebook, hugging it to her chest as if shielding Elijah's words from the world. Thunder rumbled again, closer now, echoing through the office. She looked toward the door instinctively, imagining footsteps beyond it, men waiting, listening. "So they killed him to protect themselves," she said. Marcus didn't answer. He didn't have to. His silence wrapped around the truth like wire. Naomi's throat tightened. Elijah had died alone, far from her, carrying secrets meant to keep her alive. But secrets had weight, and this one felt heavy enough to split the floor beneath her. She gripped the notebook until her nails dug into the leather. Marcus leaned closer, lowering his voice. "This drive, he told me it holds evidence. Names. Transactions. Communications. Enough to pull them into the light." Naomi's pulse hammered. "Which is why they're here." Marcus nodded once. "They can't let this reach anyone with power to expose them." Naomi's mind raced through scenarios, contingencies, the crisis response frameworks she'd built her empire upon. But nothing in her experience accounted for shadow networks or assassins in corporate lobbies. Her chest tightened with a mix of grief and fury. Elijah had carried this burden alone. Now it was hers. She straightened slowly, her CEO composure settling over her grief like armor. "We can't stay here," she said. "My office is secure, but not impenetrable. They'll escalate." Marcus scanned the room again, soldier instincts sharpening every line of his posture. "Then we move fast. But once we leave, there's no going back." Naomi slipped the hard drive into her jacket, the cold metal pressing against her heartbeat. "I'm not going back anyway." He moved to the blinds, peeking into the hallway. The corridor looked empty, but emptiness was a lie men like him had learned not to trust. "We head for the executive garage," he said. "Your car?" She shook her head. "Traceable. Company-owned." Marcus nodded approvingly. "Service vehicles, then. Less predictable." Naomi grabbed her phone, disabling all tracking features with swift, deliberate taps. "Before we leave," she said, "there's something I need to know." He turned, waiting. The man Elijah identified, the insider. Did Elijah write his name? Marcus hesitated, jaw tightening. "Yes." Naomi felt her breath stall. "Who?" He held her gaze for a long, heavy moment. "We should move first." She stepped toward him, eyes burning. "Tell me." Marcus looked away, as if saying it aloud might summon danger through the walls. "He suspected someone inside your company." The words hit her like a physical blow. Her company. Her people. The empire she had built with precision, ethics, and relentless transparency. Corrupted from within. Naomi felt anger ignite beneath her ribs, sharp and electric. "Who?" she demanded. He clenched his fists. The name was coded. He didn't have proof yet, but he believed someone near the top was helping coordinate logistics. Naomi's thoughts spun through her leadership circle, trusted partners, loyal executives, friends. Betrayal seeped through her mind like ink spreading across water. "Then the danger isn't just at the lobby," she whispered. "It's in my boardroom." Marcus didn't deny it. A sudden thud echoed in the hallway. Both froze. Another sound followed, soft, deliberate, predatory. Marcus drew closer to the door, muscles coiled, breath steady. The third sound was unmistakable, the metallic click of a suppressed weapon being readied. Naomi's stomach dropped. Marcus turned to her, voice a near-silent command. "We leave. Now." He unlocked the emergency exit concealed behind a panel near the bookshelves. The hidden stairwell yawned open, dark and narrow. Naomi hesitated only long enough to take one last look at her office, the place where she had built her legacy, negotiated her future, and, unknowingly, sheltered danger. Then she stepped into the darkness beside Marcus. The door sealed behind them just as footsteps reached the office threshold. In the stairwell, the air smelled of dust and metal, a forgotten artery built for crises that no one had ever expected to face. Naomi gripped the railing as they descended quickly and quietly, her heartbeat syncing with the rhythm of their steps. Marcus whispered, "Once we reach the garage, stay behind me." She nodded, swallowing the fear rising like smoke. Halfway down, her phone vibrated once, an incoming message from an executive who never texted without cause. She glanced at the screen. "Where are you? I need to speak with you urgently." "It's about Elijah." Naomi stopped cold. Marcus turned, eyes narrowing at the glow of her screen. She whispered, "He knows." Marcus stepped closer, voice low and grim. "Or he wants you to think he does." The stairwell hummed with silence, the kind that wrapped around fate like a closing fist. Naomi tightened her grip on the hard drive, pulse hammering with certainty. The traitor wasn't just close. He already knew she was coming. The stairwell vibrated faintly, as though footsteps above were pressing against the very air they breathed. Naomi tightened her grip on the railing, the hard drive tucked close against her chest, its weight a steady reminder of Elijah's final mission. Marcus motioned for her to stay low as they rounded another corner of the dim concrete shaft. The emergency light flickered overhead, throwing rapid shadows that danced across his face. He looked sharper, more focused than before, like danger stripped him to the bone and left only the soldier beneath. Naomi took a steadying breath. Her company, her board, her life, everything she'd built had been infiltrated. The betrayal curled inside her like a cold knot, tightening with every step downward. Marcus paused at the next landing, listening intently. Naomi could hear nothing but the distant hum of ventilation, the low growl of thunder outside the tower, and the pounding of her own pulse. "They're in your office now," he whispered. "I can hear them moving." Naomi's stomach tightened with dread and fury. She imagined strangers combing through her belongings, rifles strapped across their chests, boots tracking mud onto the carpet where Elijah once stood during annual galas. "They won't find what they're looking for," she said quietly. Marcus nodded. "But they'll assume you ran. That means they'll spread out." Naomi swallowed. "Including toward the garage." Marcus didn't respond. He didn't need to. They both knew the risk was rising with every floor they descended. A sharp ping echoed from her phone, another message. Naomi's heart lurched, but she didn't stop moving. She unlocked the screen long enough to read the preview from her executive, Harold Benton, the man who had messaged her earlier. "They know you have it. Don't go to the garage. They're waiting." Naomi stopped abruptly. Marcus nearly bumped into her. She held the phone up. He scanned the message, his expression unreadable. "He's watching," Marcus murmured. "Or he wants you to think he's helping." Naomi's voice trembled with anger. "He's one of my most trusted executives." Marcus shook his head. Elijah didn't trust anyone near the top. "Remember that." She shoved the phone back into her pocket, breath shallow. "If he's warning us, we should listen." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Or it's a trap." The stairwell groaned with a gust of wind pushing through unseen vents, reminding them how fragile safety was. Naomi steadied herself. "Then what do we do?" Marcus pointed downward, to the faint glow of an exit sign. "We get to the basement. There's a maintenance corridor. Leads to the loading dock." Naomi frowned. "How do you know that?" Marcus didn't look back. Soldiers memorize exits before they memorize entrances. As they reached the bottom floor of the stairwell, voices echoed above them, muffled at first, then clearer. "Men." "Multiple." Naomi felt her pulse jackknife. Marcus motioned sharply for silence and pressed his ear to the door. She watched as his hand moved to the handle of the concealed knife strapped beneath his jacket. "Two in the hallway," he whispered. "Maybe more around the corner." Naomi's breath hitched. "We can't go back up." "We won't," he said. "We go quiet." He cracked the door open an inch. Naomi saw a sliver of the corridor, concrete floors, pipes overhead, yellow safety lines, and shadows moving. Marcus turned back to her. His voice was barely audible. "When I go, you stay behind me. No matter what." Naomi clenched her jaw. Marcus sighed, but he cut her off with a look. Not commanding, but pleading. "He trusted me to protect you." Naomi felt a fissure open in her chest. Elijah's voice echoed through her memory, gentle, steady, sure. "If anything happens, take this to her." Marcus slipped into the hallway like a shadow. Naomi followed close behind. The corridor felt colder, narrower, like it had been carved from the bones of the building. The overhead lights buzzed dimly, illuminating the pale gray walls and the two men standing guard near a supply room. They were dressed in deep black tactical gear, not police, not corporate security. Marcus moved swiftly. Naomi's breath froze in her lungs as he incapacitated the first man with a silent blow, catching him before he hit the ground. The second turned sharply, startled. A suppressed shot hissed through the hallway. Marcus yanked Naomi behind a steel pipe as the bullet grazed the wall. Her heart nearly burst from her chest. Marcus surged forward, colliding with the attacker. The struggle was brief but brutal. Naomi watched through trembling fingers as the man collapsed, unconscious. Marcus grabbed his weapon and handed it to her. "Take it." Naomi stared at it, hands shaking. "I can't." "You can," he said. "And you will if we're going to make it out." She swallowed hard and took it, the cold metal biting into her palms. Marcus pointed toward the end of the corridor. "Loading dock is that way." They moved quickly, footsteps echoing softly. Naomi kept her eyes on his back, following the sure movements of someone who had survived more than most people could imagine. They reached the double doors leading to the dock. Marcus tested the handle. It didn't budge. Locked. Naomi stepped forward. "I have a master code." She punched in a sequence on the keypad. The lock clicked open. The doors swung outward, revealing the vast, dimly lit dock area. A few trucks lined the walls, their engines silent. But the space wasn't empty. Harold Benton stepped from behind a pillar. Naomi froze. Marcus aimed his stolen weapon at Harold instantly. Harold lifted both hands calmly. He wore his tailored suit, damp from rain, his silver hair plastered to his forehead. "Naomi," he said gently, "I'm here to help you." Marcus barked, "Don't move." Harold exhaled heavily. "I warned you not to come down here." Naomi's voice shook. "How did you know where I'd be?" Harold glanced around nervously. "Because they're monitoring the building. They know every possible exit route." Marcus tightened his grip. "He's lying." Harold shook his head vigorously. "No. I swear to you, I've been trying to protect you ever since Elijah reached out to me." Naomi's breath caught. "Elijah reached out?" Harold nodded. "Weeks before his death. He told me someone inside was selling intel. He didn't know who, but he knew I wasn't involved." Marcus stepped closer, rage flickering in his eyes. "Why didn't you report it?" Harold's voice broke. "Because Elijah told me not to trust anyone else." Naomi's world tilted. Elijah had trusted Harold. But Elijah had also left clues pointing toward betrayal within her inner circle. Her throat tightened. "Harold, why should we believe you?" Harold slowly lowered his hands. "Because the man you're looking for, the insider, is coming here. Right now." As if on cue, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed from the corridor behind them. Naomi turned slowly, dread swelling like a dark tide. The traitor stepped into view. And Naomi felt her heart shatter. The traitor stepped fully into the loading dock light, and for a heartbeat the entire world narrowed to the figure standing there, calm, composed, almost serene in the dim glow. Naomi felt her breath stop. Her CO, Damian Reese, the man she had mentored from an ambitious intern into her second-in-command, stood with his hands loosely at his sides, eyes fixed on her with a chilling familiarity. "Naomi," he said softly, as though greeting her at a board meeting instead of stalking her through the dark arteries of her own building. She felt the air thin. "Damian," she whispered. Her voice cracked under the weight of betrayal. Marcus raised his weapon instantly, stepping between them. "Don't move," he warned. Damien smiled faintly, a gesture too calm, too rehearsed. "Always so dramatic," he murmured. "You really think you're walking out of here with that drive?" Naomi's pulse hammered. "You were Elijah's leak." Damien tilted his head, almost pitying. "It wasn't personal. It was about balance. He found what wasn't meant to be found." Naomi felt something break inside her, something brittle and long protected. "You sold him out," she whispered. "You sold all of us out." Damien's smile grew colder. "No. I preserved stability." Marcus took one step forward. "Turn around. Hands up." Damien exhaled as if bored. "Soldier, you don't understand the scale of what you're interfering with." Marcus's jaw tightened. "I understand enough." But even as he spoke, Naomi noticed a flicker in Damien's gaze, a subtle glance toward the shadows behind the rows of trucks. Too subtle for most. Not too subtle for Marcus. He moved instantly. "Down!" he shouted. Naomi dropped to the floor as a suppressed shot sliced through the air, striking the crate beside her with a muffled crack. Marcus returned fire, pulling Naomi behind the nearest truck. The dock exploded into motion, shadows rushing, footsteps pounding, more men emerging from the dark edges of the space. Naomi's breath came in sharp, ragged pulls. Marcus crouched beside her, his voice low but steady. "You stay behind me. We move on my count." She nodded, gripping the stolen gun with shaking hands. Harold dove behind a pallet stack, barely avoiding another shot. "Naomi!" he shouted. "They'll box us in if we stay here." Damien's voice echoed above the chaos, calm and confident. "Naomi, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Just give me the drive." She clutched it tighter against her ribs. "Over my dead body," she breathed. Marcus grabbed her wrist gently, eyes locking with hers. "We're going to the southwest door. It leads to the external ramp. Once we're out, we run." She nodded again, adrenaline sharpening her senses. Marcus waited for a break in the gunfire, one heartbeat, two, and then pulled her forward. They raced between two columns of stacked crates, bullets sparking off metal and concrete around them. Naomi's lungs burned. Her heels slipped on the slick dock floor, but Marcus held her steady, guiding her like a lifeline. Ahead, one of Damien's men stepped into their path. Marcus collided with him before Naomi could scream, the two men grappling in a blur of fists and fury. Naomi raised her gun with trembling arms. The world tunneled. The man broke free, reaching for his weapon. Naomi didn't think, she fired. The gun kicked back violently, the sound muted but devastating. The man crumpled. Her hands shook uncontrollably as Marcus grabbed her again. "Good," he said, voice firm. "Now move." She didn't know if it was good. She didn't know if she could live with it. But she moved. Harold caught up with them, limping slightly. "The southwest door, there's a keypad. The code's been changed." Marcus cursed under his breath. "By who?" Harold shot him a grim look. "Who do you think?" Damien's voice rose again, smooth and insidious. "Naomi, Elijah was wrong. You weren't supposed to find any of this. You were supposed to lead the company, not destroy it." Naomi spun, fury lighting her from within. "You killed my husband." Damien stepped into the center aisle, lowering his weapon slightly so she could see his face clearly. "I expedited an outcome," he said simply. "You shouldn't romanticize it." Naomi's vision blurred with rage. Marcus yanked her back as another shot rang out, shattering glass overhead. "We need that door," he said. "Now." Harold pushed forward, heading toward the keypad. "I can override it if I access the manual lock wiring." Marcus nodded. "Do it." Naomi watched Harold kneel by the small metal box, hands working quickly despite his trembling. Damien barked an order. "Stop them." More footsteps. More shadows. Naomi fired twice toward the figures approaching from the right, forcing them back. Marcus returned fire, precise and deadly. Harold ripped a wire, sparks flying. 5 seconds, he shouted. Marcus positioned himself in front of Naomi, shielding her with his body. The dock filled with smoke and shouts. Naomi felt her heartbeat rising into her throat. Harold twisted the final wire. The lock clicked. "Go!" he yelled. Marcus shoved the door open. Cold rain and night air blasted into the dock. Naomi sprinted out first, the hard drive bouncing against her ribs. Harold followed, then Marcus. Behind them, Damien screamed, "Don't let them leave!" The ramp outside the door sloped steeply downward into the storm-slick alley behind the tower. Naomi's shoes slid, but Marcus steadied her as they ran. Harold stumbled. Naomi grabbed his arm, pulling him forward. "Keep moving!" she yelled. Behind them, men burst from the doorway. Gunfire erupted, bullets sparking against the wet pavement. Marcus returned fire while running, covering their escape. They reached the end of the ramp just as a black SUV screeched into the alley, blocking their path. Naomi froze. The doors opened. For a heartbeat she thought it was Damien's men. But the figures who stepped out wore federal insignia, real ones. The lead agent raised a badge. "Dr. Hartwell." "Marcus Avery. Drop your weapons, you're safe." Marcus didn't trust easily. He kept his gun raised. "Prove it," he demanded. The agent tossed him a folded document, authorization for an ongoing federal investigation into the clandestine group Elijah had discovered. Naomi's breath caught. "Elijah initiated this," she whispered. The agent nodded. "He sent us evidence before he died. Not everything, but enough. We've been trying to reach you." Tears blurred her vision. Marcus finally lowered his weapon. Behind them, Damien slowed at the top of the ramp, rain drenching his suit, his expression twisted with defeat and disbelief. Federal agents surged past Naomi, swarming him. Damien dropped his gun, his mask crumbling for the first time. Naomi stared at him as agents restrained him. His voice broke into a desperate plea. "Naomi, you don't understand." She turned away. "No," she whispered. "I finally do." The agents led Damien into custody. Naomi clutched the hard drive to her chest as thunder rolled overhead. Marcus stepped beside her, rain streaking his face. "He'd be proud of you," he said softly. Naomi closed her eyes, tears mixing with rain. "No," she whispered. "He'd be proud of us." And in the stormlit alley, Naomi finally felt the weight of Elijah's truth settle not as a burden, but as a legacy she could carry forward, one built not on fear, but on courage, justice, and the unbreakable light he had left behind.